Hello, everyone, and welcome to the FCBDU podcast, your backstage pass to the magical world of Fat Chance Belly Dance style. I'm your host, DeAnna, and I invite you to join me along with a variety of special guests and experts as we explore the beauty, intricacies, and lifestyle topics of this captivating dance style. Grab a comfortable seat, tune in, and let's embark on a journey through the rhythms, movements, and history that make Fat Chance Belly Dance style an enchanting experience like no other. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the FCBDU podcast. It's your backstage pass to everything magical about Fat Chance Belly Dance style. I'm your host, DeAnna, and we've got some very special guests today. I'll introduce them in just a moment. Today, I'm really excited to introduce our special guests, but also we're here to discuss the topic of embodying emotions and navigating the dance studio with emotional intelligence. So many of you might be wondering, what the heck does that mean? So go ahead and grab some paper and a pen. This is a huge topic. Of course, we won't get into all of it today, but we've got some ways that you can further study, so stay tuned. But go ahead and make some notes or maybe jot down some things that you might want to go back and study a little bit later. So before we dive into today's topic, I want to introduce my special guests for this episode. These wonderful dancers caught my attention a couple of years ago in Soest, Germany. I was there with Carolina and Kelly. We were teaching general skills and teacher training. And not only did they catch my attention with their beautiful dancing, but just the way that they worked so well as a team. And sometimes when you see people work as a team and then you go to separate them, they're just like, no, I came with my friend. I'm worried to be away from my friend. They were like, okay. And they would just go and dance and interact with everybody. And I was really just drawn to the way that they fostered a sense of community with no matter where they were in the class. So I was really, really excited to see that. So it wasn't just their beautiful dancing, it was the way they navigated their energies together, and with whatever group that they were a part of, they were completely present within that group. Their duets are an impeccable example of FCBD style duets at their finest, and the work that they put into their continuing education and just their education in general is very inspiring, and it's just so very professional. So not only are they two amazing humans and dancers, but they are our newest addition to our FCBDU instructor team here. And I'm really, really excited. They each have brand new classes this month out on FCBDU. And so we'll tell you a little bit more about those later. So welcome, Dani and Elena. Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you so much. Thank you for these kind words. It was a lovely introduction. I'm blushing a little bit.
Oh, no, I'm gonna cry. It was really, it's really so great to have you guys here and to have gotten to know you even more over the years. I know that you came to my alignment intensive, and the way that you were attentively paying attention and listening and smiling when we were talking about various things and your questions, I was like, these are my people. Like, you guys had really great questions that, it was just, I don't know, it was just really an honor to have you in class. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting us. I'm so excited. I can't wait to chat about one of my very favorite topics here.
Yes. So I brought you guys on today. I know we were talking a little bit about the classes and the types of classes that you were going to offer here on FCBDU. And so February, we have been working on the concept of connection and connecting. And specifically, we were working on some things with duets. So we have a class on orbit coming out at the end of this month. And just that connection that you get with other dancers. And that can bring about a lot of emotions that you're not really sure about. It can also kind of make you check in and be a little bit mindful of your own emotions. And so, Dani, when you were talking about one of your areas of expertise and the class that you have coming out tomorrow, I was like, this is going to be the perfect addition to our February topic. So I'm really glad that you're here. So I thought we could start by just talking a little bit about what does it even mean? So I know, Danny, you use the term, there's emotional competence. You may have heard it as emotional competence, emotional intelligence, or and of course, I like to approach things as both the scientific and what my husband calls the pseudoscience, which is a little bit more of the woo-woo or the Eastern philosophy. So I want to kind of introduce people to like, what is this topic that we're going to talk about today? So I thought we could start with kind of like our own definitions. So, Danny, do you want to start? This is one of your favorites.
I'd love to. Yes. So I prefer talking about emotional competence. Maybe it's has something to do with the language in Germany. It's a bit more common to talk about it like this, and it's so hard to define. Everyone defines it a little different. And what I did in university, so I studied special educational needs. As like a preliminary training for psychotherapists. So what I studied was like a mixture of psychology and pedagogics. And there in this field, there's a very, very nice definition about emotional competence, which I personally stick to. And it is emotional competence is like the competence to be able to deal with your own emotions and also with the emotions around you, so with the people around you. And let's leave it like this, because if I will dive deeper, I will talk for an hour or two and will not stop. So it's about dealing with emotions, with your own emotions and with emotions of others, which is something we as dance teachers and also as performers do every day.
Yes. And Elena, what do you, and you can give us a little bit about your background too. Sorry, I should have asked that as well, but then tell us a little bit about what you define this as.
No worries. Well, I actually first learned about emotional competence and the whole scientific and theoretical background when I started working with Dani about 12 years ago, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
I feel old. But before that, basically, my field of study was English linguistics and sociology. So I did learn a bit about, how society works, how living together works, um, also from the theoretical perspective, but there was not too much psychology or anything like that. Just, looking at people living together, coping together, and managing, navigating community. Navigating living in a community. And I started dancing also when I started studying in the university. Basically, I just picked belly dance. And that was, I think, 21 years ago. And 20 years ago, I started studying FCBD style. And I think about 4 years later, I already started teaching. And I had absolutely no clue how to do it. I was just copying my own teachers at first, like probably most beginner teachers do. And I also tried learning by experience. And when I met Dani, we talked a lot about things like emotional intelligence. That was for me a really eye-opening experience about things that I've never even thought of, or things that I might have found frustrating or irritating in my work as a dance teacher. And that's when I started also reflecting on how I teach and what a huge role emotions play in a dance studio. So basically, my definition of emotional competence is really, to make it simple, I want to be the kind of teacher that I would have wanted for myself when I was starting to dance. Yeah, has a lot to do with empathy, especially for me.
Empathy. Yeah, absolutely. I love those two definitions.
Mhm.
And I see emotional. So here we use, well, any other words, right? Emotional intelligence, but that makes it sound like if you don't have it, then you're not intelligent. And so that's kind of a weird term. But I really like to, when I was learning about it, I'm like, to me, it's more like emotional mindfulness, like being mindful of your own emotions, being mindful that others don't perceive things the same way that you do, and that you are processing things through your own filter, whatever your background may be, and honoring the fact that someone else has a different filter and different backgrounds. And then of course you get into communication, and how do you both come to that, into communication, having that. And unfortunately, sometimes one person has the emotional mindfulness and the other person doesn't, and you're like clashing or something. But yeah, so I see that a lot as emotional mindfulness, and working just like in the corporate world, we had some training around that, because we were in our leadership training that we were working and training and mentoring our staff. But really, when I got into my studies of yoga and the mindfulness that you have to have within your own body and your own emotions, and how that is impacted through somatics and your body, that's when I really felt like I was able to take time to tune in to my own emotional competence. So yeah, I think I'm going to define it for today. I'm going to define it as more of like emotional mindfulness. And I love that you used the word empathy, because it's being able to also connect with others and theirs.
Yes, very much. Yeah.
So those of you that are joining us live, I'd love for you to chime in the comments and tell us what your definition, and if this is something that you've studied in the past as well. So how does this pertain to dance? Right? So I thought we could talk a little bit about, why is this important for us to, let's start as dance students. Why would this be important for us to understand a little bit more of, from the context of being a dance student? Who wants to start?
Well, I can start, and then you can just slide in and correct me if I'm wrong. Well, as a student, most of our students do come to our classes in their free time, right? They have their jobs, they have maybe their family life, and they want to come in to the dance studio and have some me time to connect with others, maybe like spend a nice time with a group and do something nice for themselves. So understanding that perspective for me is really important when you're teaching. And so basically that's what I'm trying to do, to make sure that the students are focused on the present, on the class. They're being in a moment, and especially with FCBD style classes, it's important to have this connection of them among each other, because you do group improv, and group improv without personal connection on some level will just not work. That's in my opinion, yeah.
And if we think about why is it important to think about emotional competence, emotional mindfulness in the perspective of the dance student, it's why you should think about it in the perspective of human being.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, being the dance student is nothing different than just being a human being in a part of society. Yesterday, I heard some podcasts about that more and more people in our society are feeling lonely, despite the fact that we are living in even bigger cities and are connected to more and more people. So for me, emotional competence or mindfulness has a lot to do with thinking about all these things. Why do I feel lonely? Maybe I have to go out more often. Maybe I have to participate a dance class to connect with people. Why do I feel lonely? Why maybe I can't connect with people? And then I can ask myself, why can't I connect with the people around me? So emotional competence also means getting awareness of what's going on inside myself, in my mind and my body. How do I feel in which company, and how to maybe get over some anxieties, to get into contact, or just create the environment around you and the environment inside you to get in contact with others. So this is what we really need as human beings. We are social human beings, and we need to connect. And I think a lot of this feeling lonely, despite we're having lots of social contacts, has a lot to do with a lack of emotional competence, which doesn't mean that you're not intelligent or something. It just means that maybe you dislearned how to connect with your body and how to listen to yourself. And it has a lot to do with how important are your own feelings and your own emotions for yourself. And do you take time to really connect with yourself, to be able to open up, to connect with others, and to have a wonderful time in dance class or in every other part of society?
Yeah, I love that. That was beautiful. And it's true. I mean, I think people are feeling more lonely, even though we seemingly have, connections and social media and everything. It doesn't mean that. It's almost like the way that we're connecting, especially through technology, is taking away or distracting ourselves from our own feelings, because it's more of like that projecting, and you can see this when people, troll others on social media, and you're like, you would never have that conversation in person. Like, why do you feel like that's okay? So it's that same, you don't have to feel the empathy of someone else, or through an online platform, or many people kind of use that as a shield, perhaps. Yeah, and I think it's important, if you are going into a dance class, it takes a lot of nerve to say, I'm going to go to a dance class, especially for a belly dance class. I'm going to go to a dance class. And you get in there, and some people get so uncomfortable with being in an environment around other people, moving your body. There's a mirror, there's a lot of lighting, the teacher might be really excited and boisterous. And sometimes people are just like, I got to go. Instead of like, why is this affecting me so much? And being able to tune into that. It's like, oh, it's just, I'm not used to being around a lot of people anymore. Or, wow, this is making me, my introvert, kind of freak out. And maybe I just need to like do a little bit of breathing and relax and be present, instead of like pulling yourself out of an uncomfortable situation. Why is it uncomfortable? And about being able to evaluate that. And knowing that, I feel, is part of that, having that intelligence or that competence, instead of just like, no, I'm gonna not do this right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Well, I just experienced it actually last Thursday when I had a class and I had a new student in my class. It was a woman who was a little older than me, and when she came in, I could tell she was totally insecure and feeling very uncomfortable and like very exposed to the looks of others. And she told me, well, my daughter signed me up for this, and well, I'll just try and we'll see, maybe I'll do it. And so I did my best to make her feel welcome and included. And no matter how experienced you are, no matter how old or young you are, no matter of your body shape or anything, you are always welcome. And I did my best to kind of also integrate her with the other students, with the whole group. And at the end of the class, it was like a totally different person. She had a big smile on her face and she said, okay, I'll see you next week. So that felt really great, and I'm really grateful for having this kind of knowledge and having this kind of skill to see what people need when they're feeling maybe awkward or out of place somewhere.
Yeah.
If I may add something,
Yes.
this is something in the field of emotional competence which I think was one of the most impactful things to learn for me. This realization that happy people are always the ones you want to dance with, you want to work with, you want to spend time with. And so doesn't matter if I'm in the role of a teacher or just a human being on my free time and joining whatever kind of group setting. It's my goal to make the people around me feel comfortable, because I know we will have a much deeper connection then, and all of us will have a much better time. So this was so cool to see as a dance teacher how students change if you make them feel comfortable, and something that impacts my whole life, my whole social life. Because if you understood this, that if you make people feel great, then you have the best life you can imagine.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. That's one of my goals is send happiness out into the world, right? And so I love that you brought this in. This is exactly where I wanted to go, as a teacher, what are some things that what are some ways that you also need to manage your emotional competence as an instructor? Because you have to manage your own in order, if you want to be able to reach out and have the empathy and have the compassion and kind of tune into what that student needs, because every student, it feels like, needs something a little different. Right? Their personalities they're bringing in, it's all different. And so as an instructor, you should be really mindful of your own emotions, because also if there are emotions that you're having and you can't bring into class, you need to understand how to let those go, right? But then being able to manage your emotions in a way that you can take all these other emotions, all these other filters that people are processing through, and then bring it in and express out in a way that you're bringing all of that together. And that has to happen in 3 seconds. So what are some ways that you do that you kind of help? What are some ways as teachers that you help students feel more comfortable with their own emotions? And that could be the students, like what Elena was saying, where they're just the nerves and the kind of I don't know. But also we get students that are because they're so excited, they don't know how to kind of contain that a little bit. And I know that you work with children, so you probably have a lot more experience in that area than I do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for me, it's absolutely been learning by doing, and I've had this weird talent. I wouldn't call it talent. It's the fact that I tend to focus on everyone else's emotions and needs while completely neglecting mine. Which I would say, don't do that. I'm working with a therapist on managing to do both, because it's not healthy for yourself to neglect your own emotional state and needs. So I'm still learning that. Yeah. And yeah, I'm just trying to gently pull the students' focus away from their everyday stressful things or whatever, or overexcitement, for example, to just say, okay, we're dancing now, are you with me? And it mostly works most of the time, but I think Dani can say a lot more about that.
Oh, there's so much about this thing. So first of all, for me, the most important thing is learning. So I'm very lucky. I was able to start teaching when I was 16 years old. So this was 18 years ago. And it was not fetch and style back then, because I started a bit later. But I led some movement classes. And when I did this, it was all learning by doing. And it was so hard to teach a class of kids and a class of youths, and to somehow deal with their emotions, with lots of kids who were sent to the class but didn't want to join. And then there were the kids that were so excited, but they were annoyed of the kids that didn't want to join, and so on and so on. And for me, as a 16-year-old, first movement class, it was so hard. It was so hard to dealing with all these emotions. And I wasn't even an adult then. I had my own emotion in the world, which was wild, of course. And then I started studying when I was 19, and it was like a total different experience. I didn't stop teaching. I always kept on having more classes, and during my studies in university, I got more and more classes. And someday I just decided to go full-time into dancing and teaching. But I really wanted to finish my time in university, which was great, because there I learned like everything I need to know. And I also learned that I never will stop learning. So this is the basis for me, learning more about emotions. And it's like I'm keeping up with the newest scientific results, and so on and so on. So this is something I do continuously to be aware of the newest findings, and talking to others, because you don't have to learn just from books and videos and so on. You also learn from the experiences of your colleagues, from other dance teachers, and also from your teachers. So this is like the basis for me: learn and educate yourself, and never stop this. And the next step is a good class preparation. So whenever I prepare my class, I always have in mind the choice of music, the choice of exercise, the choice of classroom management. So where to stand in the class, how to organize your class, which formation do you want your class to be in? Do you place them in rows or in a circle, or do you do something across the floor, maybe crisscross, starting a bit chaotic? This all influences how your students will feel. So this is the next step for me. And this is based on not just education, but also experience, because by teaching classes, you make experience about how which kind of exercise or classroom management will influence your class. Because what works for Elena does not mean that it will work for me. And if Elena starts with a crisscrossing around the floor, and it works for her classes very well, and the people maybe get very calm, it might happen that if I start this way, same exercise, same music, same words I use, but the students will get very excited instead of calm down. So this is the kind of experience you really need to handle. And then not just the preparation long beforehand, but the minutes before class. How do I feel today? How to get rid of like unwelcome emotions and needs that are not part of my role as a teacher right now, that are part of something else. That doesn't mean that I neglect them, but that right now for the next hour, it's not part of this classroom. I can deal with it later. And I had some situations. So I had some quite stressful weeks. I had some stress with German departments. So everybody who lives in Germany and works as an artist know what this means. It can get very stressful, but it has nothing to do with my class. And then on my way to school, I was in an overcrowded bus, and this very, very overcrowded bus filled up with lots of angry people, was caught in a Polizeieinsatz. What is this?
Like in a oh, that's
so
a good
lots
thing.
of
Well,
lots of
lots of police
and blue
trying,
lights,
like in an arrest situation. I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the police officers stopped the bus and were shouting at us, "No one is allowed to leave the bus."
Oh my
And
God.
I wasn't late, but annoyed by the bus being late again. and overcrowded and so on, filled up with lots of angry people. And then the police stopped us, and police officers were shouting like, no one is allowed to leave and you have to stay calm. And then they tried their very best to like, oh, everything's will be fine. But everybody was aware of maybe not. We'll see. And people tried to get out of the bus because they were afraid of what will happen. And then I saw the situation next to my window where they arrested someone who had a gun. And
Oh my
I was
gosh.
like, oh no. And I was inside of me, I was freaking out. I was searching for a way to hide. It was not possible because I was stretched to the window and there was no possibility to hide. And all I could do was like accepting the situation I'm in, no way to run away, no worries, embracing the fear that rose up inside my body because it will not help to neglect this fear. I was afraid. And of course, I was afraid because there was someone with a gun and a big fight with like 8 police officers bringing down the person with a gun. It was next to my window. And of course, I was afraid. This is normal. This is the reaction I want my body to have, to be fast, to look around, to really orientate myself, and to analyze the situation as fast as I can to get ready to run or hide or fight or whatever. This is great. And in this moment, I was like, thank you, body and emotions. This is fine. Not possible right now, but we'll see. And then away, and I was full of emotions, and I made the plan, okay, I will have my kids classes right now, and I somehow have to do this. I got deep into myself and asked myself, am I able to teach today? Because there are these days you aren't, because something happens. It doesn't have to be the flu. It can also be something like this, something on your way to class happens, which makes you freaking out and you can't teach. And this is totally fine. So you're like sick, and this is okay. Everybody gets sick. And I felt like, okay, I just need 5 minutes. And then I arrived at the dance studio and the children were there very early. And I was like, oh no, okay. But then I was able to immediately jump into the role of being the dance teacher, being responsible for the children, being responsible for the classes. I taught my children's class. I taught my adults class. We had some organizational talks in between. And after classes, all the emotions came back and I was ready to process them. And it was quite a ton of emotions. But I was able to teach the classes, and I was able to, deal with the emotions I experienced, to process the situation I was in, and to not let it affect my classes.
Yeah. I think it's a very important skill, very helpful for a dance teacher. Well, as I already said, I'm still learning that, and I often fall into this pitfall, so to speak, when I'm feeling weird, having a weird day, that I say it out loud to my class. And this is like one of the biggest mistakes you can make as a dance teacher, in our opinion. We just talked about this on today, because it's kind of like you're setting yourself up for failure as a teacher. It's okay to have a weird day, just like Danny said, and it's okay to feel weird about it, but it's not you're responsible for your own emotions at this moment, and you're responsible also for your students as a teacher. And telling them that you're having a bad day or a weird day, it's kind of like handing the responsibility over to them.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, also Danny taught me a really cool example, or like a metaphor for it. It's like you're having a dinner party and you tell your guests, well, I tried my best, but I don't think it's really good with what I'm going to serve you.
Right.
They expect you to fail, uh, as opposed to when you just say, okay, here's what I cooked, enjoy. Maybe they won't even notice. Maybe it's not as bad as you think if you're like a total perfectionist. But if you tell them it's not good, they will search for mistakes, or what you could have done wrong, and when with dance students hear you say that I'm not a good teacher today, they will expect you to be a bad teacher. And if you just keep it to yourself and focus on your job, basically, they might not ever, notice that something's off,
I think it doesn't have to do just something between the relationship you create with your students. It also is like, how can I, as a teacher, create the most joyful experience for my students?
Yes.
So if I tell them I'm not feeling really good today, the students maybe feel like, oh, I'm so sorry for her. And then they, instead of focusing on dancing and having a great time for themselves, there's some space in their minds and hearts filled up with my problems, which is not my aim. I want them to have a really, really good time. And it's not about that you shouldn't talk with your students about how you feel, but maybe not in class. If your aim is to just make them, create the wonderful experience, wonderful dance experience. And after class, if you go out to have dinner together or whatever, talk about your bad day and your stressful day if you feel like this. Why not? But in the class, I would never do this. I would never tell my students, oh, I'm having such a bad day. But if they're like, oh, Dani, you're not looking well today.
Right.
What happens?
What's going on? Yeah.
Then I sometimes tell like a little bit, or most often it's just that I'm not wearing glasses or so.
Glasses and no makeup.
You're like,
yes, my glasses are like makeup. And if I don't wear them, people are like, oh, you look tired. And then I put on the glasses and they're like, oh, okay.
There you are. I love what you said about. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I just wanted to like make a conclusion sentence or so.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna add on, and then you can do a conclusion sentence. I love what you said about the experience. So I think this is how I approach it because, well, two things. So Elena, I completely I connected with what you said about, just like pushing my own emotions down because those aren't important. And then, the difference in like continuously pushing them down, totally guilty. And then versus what Dani said was, I'll come back to you later. Right. Cause I grew up in this sense of, no, you don't come back to them later. You just keep pushing them away, and of course, after so many years, it feels like you spend your 30s, part of your 40s, undoing all of the things that you had to deal with, as far as pushing stuff away. So yeah, so I totally connected with that. But I love the concept of what kind of experience do you want your students to have? So, and I love that. And Dani's like, I always want my students to experience, joy. So for me, that helps me connect with what the emotions that I want to present in class. Not that I'm putting like a costume on today. I'm going to be happy or today I'm going to be, sassy. It's just, what do I want to mindfully embrace the parts of me? And so sometimes for yoga, for instance, sometimes it's a sense of grounding. And that's going to be the tone of voice that I use throughout the class, the music that I use, the lighting when they come into the class. What is that going to be like? How do I want to end the class? Do I want to end it seated? Do I want to end it laying down? Do I want to end it with a quote? Do I want to end it in silence or meditation or breath work? And the same, of course, with dance. How do I want my students to feel? Well, having them on day one, week one, is going to be different than shimmy week, right? When it comes to shimmy week, the lights are going to be up, the music's going to be louder, like my outfit's going to be a little bit brighter, because I want them to have that sensation that ultimately they'll feel in their body, right? If they're feeling this, if I can create this emotional feeling in them, then it's probably, or it's more likely to come out in the expression of what I hope that they feel in their bodies.
Exactly. It's all connected, basically.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. The person on week 1, it's amazing. We work on posture in week 1. Absolutely. Because being,
Mhm.
the somatic is just the kinesthetic aspect of what emotions can do to you.
Yeah.
Always working on posture, always working on posture. But then, the releasing of the hips and the toxine, like the figure 8 is so challenging for so many people. But the emotional aspect of releasing your abs to relax your hips is completely the opposite of how most people go throughout their day. So it's a lot to ask somebody day 1, right?
Mhm.
So, you can just see where people are kind of holding on to that emotion. Not to mention they're really trying hard, and so everything is
Yeah.
super tense.
Yeah.
So, having that experience, creating the experience of how you want them to feel throughout class and at the end of class, so important, I find. And that's where, that's why I say it's the mindfulness, or for me, it's like mindfulness.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. And speaking of hip figure 8, 2 of our most advanced students, who we dance with for I don't know how many years, they also come to our beginner class because they just want to learn everything, and this is great. And I just started a level 1 class from the very beginning. And when we were doing figure 8, they were so frustrated because they had a habit of doing it completely differently, and had the feeling that that they're total beginners, and it was super frustrating because they wouldn't be able to let go, to just relax the hip. That was the most challenging thing for them, and the more frustrated they get, the tougher it gets to relax. But at some point, they just nailed it.
Mm.
It just clicked, and they absolutely nailed it. And I experienced them so much more, so much happier since then. And they seem to have gotten the gist of, or the importance of, going back to the basics, even though you're a very experienced FCBD style dancer. And they're just having so much fun in my level 1 class, even though they have like a very limited vocabulary for now to dance with, and I'm very strict, just use the level 1 steps, guys, don't go overboard with that. And they love it. They used to hate it, but now they love it. And that's
That's so
so, yeah, I
nice.
know, right?
Cool.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Something kind of clicked. It was like, oh, I'm working not
Mhm.
necessarily on the technique of the
Mhm.
step. Now I've gotten more advanced in level 1. So I'm working on, how can I let go more? How can
Yeah.
I breathe through this step a little
Mhm.
bit better? How can I connect with the concept of flow a little bit more, right? So it's like, instead of being distracted by adding that, the sense of distraction we can get by adding so many things, it's like, how can
Mhm.
I use this practice to go a little bit deeper into myself? I mean, I love that. And that's why I do, that's why I love the classics, because I see Fat Chance style as a lifestyle,
Mhm.
and a mindfulness practice, and not just like, I could do this forever and not perform again, and I'm fine with that, because it's like yoga. Like, yoga is not a performance. It's a way to move your body, to connect with yourself, to connect with music or not, to dive into history, or the emotional aspect, whatever it is. And so, yeah, I love that you just shared that. It's like the level 1 students realized that they could learn how to enjoy it even more. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the concept of
Exactly.
letting go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, yesterday I was writing a 3-page essay for a German online class about this topic,
Yeah.
about this letting go thing.
Yeah.
This is so
Yeah.
interesting that we are coming back to this today.
Mhm.
because it was so hard for me to keep it to just 3 pages because I wanted to write 20. Because there's this, what most people who are joining a dance class don't know is that if we have tension in our body, it often is a way of your body to protect yourself against, very strong emotional experiences, because emotions are something we experience with our whole body, not just with our minds, but with the whole body. So whenever you experience stress, you have this tendency to do this, because it made sense lots and lots of years ago.
Yeah.
It made sense to hide. You're stressed, oh, let's hide and then look around. And this is also what our hip flexors, so very, very important muscles for belly dancers, our hip flexors that flex the hip joints, are part of this hiding mechanism. And if we start moving the hips and starting to relax it, what I really regularly experience in class is that people start crying the moment when they manage to realize. I know that yoga teachers know this even more than belly dance teachers, because they stretch and open the hips, and people, are often a little faster in letting go because they have their own mat, maybe manage to go deeper in their own emotions, maybe join the yoga class because they want to let go. And belly dance students join the class because they want to dance and want to express, and they don't know before that they want to let go. But then they're getting to this point, and it's totally normal if you experience strong emotions, then you cry. And if we do some hip openers, may it be in dance class or yoga, if you want to learn the splits, or if you just want to loosen the hip for making a better shimmy, then it might happen that you release so many emotions that you don't understand them, because there are old emotions. But you have to cry, you experience them, and then you let them go. You can let these old emotions go. And I love it so much. And I experienced it because I think I told you before, DeAnna, that you showed me how to open my heart. It was something that I took so many privates about how to do this. And what I needed was your yoga inspired warm up, and then something clicked, and I was like, I have to lift from here. And suddenly I created this flexibility, and I got tears in my eyes because of joy, and I didn't understand them, but I already knew what this means, and that this is something good. And I think it's important for us as dance teachers, especially as belly dance teachers, where opening your heart because we lift our chest a bit, or letting go of some tension in the hips, can release very, very strong emotions in our students. And if you as a teacher don't know why your student suddenly cries, and the student herself don't know this, it might be frightening, but it doesn't have to be, because it's something good if you get rid of old emotions and you cry without totally freaking out. I'm not talking about a trauma response right now. I'm just talking about emotional
different podcast.
yes, just to be clear about this. We're not talking about something pathological, but about healthy emotional and healthy stress release. So tears in this release situation are great. And something beautiful that happens.
Exactly. And you can just explain to your student what's happening there to, lighten up their fear, so they're not afraid or maybe even embarrassed for crying in public. That's something that's quite stigmatized, unfortunately, in our society. Just let them know that something good is happening at the moment, that it's totally fine, and that they're safe in their dance class.
And creating a safe environment is huge.
Yes, you can prepare them. So if you know, I will teach a hip opener class today, because we will have a hip opening warm up section with lots of stretching. I tell my students beforehand that this can happen, and this is fine. So they are already prepared, and then you don't bring the focus of the whole class to the crying person by commenting it. So it's just, we talked about it.
Yeah.
This happens. And then everybody is calm and relaxed and no one worries about some tears.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and sometimes so different different emotions can be held in different parts of the body, of course, as we've been saying, and sometimes it's not even just tears. Sometimes it can be anger, and so sometimes a certain movements make people feel uncomfortable, and they're not sure of what that is. Like, why do I feel weird? And you're like, and then if you have that emotion, that mindfulness, right, the emotional competence, you're like, oh, this makes me feel vulnerable when they ask me to lift my heart, or body waves make me feel exposed, or because you're lifting your heart, right? And so this, for people that have had, again, we won't get into the trauma, but for people that haven't had a space where they can feel like they can share and express and be open. This is tomorrow's blog post, by the way, so make sure that you read the newsletter. It's it can be very uncomfortable, and so sometimes your body responds to this, and especially over time. So if you are, especially if you've grown up in a situation like this, or you're living in a situation where you don't feel like you can express and connect, then the muscles in your body have adapted to that. So going, like, consistently being aware of, like, okay, I need to work on strengthening my erector spinae. I need to strengthen my back muscles, right? Release the tension in my shoulders. And this is why it can be a process, not just to create the technique of getting into, let's just say, posture, but it can be an emotional process of being able to get into the movement of, as Elena just said, like as a figure eight, So it's not just like, oh, you just have to stretch more. It's also the letting go of the tension in the body, letting go of the stuff that you don't realize you're holding on to in your body. And in a yoga practice, of course, we hold things, depending on the class, we hold things longer. So we'll hold a heart opening pose a lot longer, or be in a restorative, or we've got the heart lifted on blankets, and you're there for like 10 minutes with your own emotions being talk about an intense reaction, that you can have. And so people might say, well, I don't like restorative yoga. It's like, because you don't like the way that it's making you feel, because you're trying to hide that shit and push it
down. Yeah, I totally get that. And especially, again, with FCBD style classes and working with beginners, you have to be aware of so many things that you tend to forget when you get more advanced. Like, for example, that keeping eye contact while circling is super hard for beginners. It's like it's making them feel so awkward, and they just start giggling and apologizing or whatever. So you just have to be aware of that, and acknowledge that, and make them feel safe in your class, safe enough so that they can you know just try it out and see that it's okay, that it's not weird or awkward at all.
Right. I know, and I love that. This to the end of this month, we're doing the orbit, and I specifically saved it to the end of the month so that, like, we've been working on all of those connections and duets and like the emotions and stuff, because when you get into an orbit, it's a little different too, right? Because you've got, once we get through the, like, being able to make eye contact in a circle, and then you have like this duet situation where you're, also making eye contact, but it's a little more intimate. And then you get into the orbit where you're like that close to somebody and making eye contact. It's like, oh my gosh, it can get even more intense. And that's where we start, giggling or winking at somebody or whatever. So I'm going to check in with the comments over here on YouTube. That's why I keep looking over to the left. So welcome everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. I'm going to read some of these larger comments. Samantha says, I think we have a physical self that we are aware of, dancers, an intellectual self, which is the context of our capacity to learn and understand and share information, and a spiritual self, which for some of us doesn't matter. Is that what you said? Spirit self is important for some in dance, but not for others. Yeah, everybody just has a different approach.
Mhm.
Some people don't even think about the emotional aspect of their life. They're just going through it and not stopping to kind of like, how is this making me really feel? Or, just kind of like living life on the peripheral
Mhm.
or reacting instead of like stepping through. So tomorrow's blog post is it's just kind of like a little introduction about what we're talking about, like the physical and emotional aspects. So I was worked a little bit on the heart chakra, but having these different, the energetic anatomy, if you will, right? The subtle body. So it's more than just our physical body that's moving us, right? It's more than just the physical body in our dance class, but that's what a lot of people show up for dance class for. Just like in yoga, people show up to yoga because they want to work out, right? And they don't realize it's a lot more of a work in than it is
Mhm.
a work out, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
And she says, emotional self in context for dance is about how we regulate before class and how we present there. And this was a while back, so this is what we were talking about,
Mhm.
like the example about the bus and the police horrible experience that you had. How we express ourselves and how we respond to others, how we respond to others expressing themselves, and how we listen to that. Listening to each other really matters in a dance that relies on cues, eye contact, responding to the music, and the here and now, and the togetherness. Absolutely.
Yeah. 100.
Lacey says, social media is superficial, and some people feel free to behave totally different as in real relationships because they don't have to deal with the effects the same way as in real life. Now, we talked about that, about they don't have to feel the empathy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Um, And Samantha says, very true. It's spilling out in emails. Emails too. Oh. And Lisi says, in a live group improv dance class, it's really interesting and wonderful to see how people have different abilities to connect. And then loving this chat, I am hearing. So yeah, the fact that we dance group improv, right? We're dancing with people. A lot of times we don't know them, at least to start. Where we have this posture that creates a sense of openness, right? Strength, vulnerability, but in a way that, like, it's not vulnerability like scared. It's like vulnerability in the sense of I'm giving you myself. Like I'm here for this, right? I'm connecting with you, I'm present with you. And that can feel very vulnerable for a lot of people. And then all the things we were talking about, moving after all of that, just standing in front of somebody in posture is huge for as far as emotions go. Then you take your arms away from this protective aspect and you open them up, which opens this heart meridian area even more, right? And then you smile and make eye contact.
Yeah.
And then you move your hips, which we just talked about can make me cry.
Awkward. No, but seriously, this is all of the things that you just described. For me, it's like having a superpower on stage with the connection with the group. It makes me feel you know unbeatable, basically. Yeah, come what may, I'm gonna make it. And I'm so powerful at this. I feel so powerful in such situations.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think all this awareness of how this openness and how being open towards others make you feel comes or gets more important the more you dance and the more experienced you are. Because I remember when I learned this stuff, it was like, okay, surviving the circle and right or left, don't understand it. Oh, they turn right or left. What was the move? And so on.
Yeah.
So there's not that much space for really feeling your own body and to connect with your own emotions. But now, since I don't have to think about the steps anymore and where I can in a performance situation or a dance situation, can just trust my body that the technique will be there. I experience so strong emotion while connecting with other dancers. And there are some dancers I have such an intense connection with, where I have to be really aware of not going into 100% because it's too much for both of us. So there are so many emotions floating in the room. There's so much energy that I sometimes feel like, okay, wow, I really have to close up a little bit. Just it's like opening a ventil. I don't want to make this because I would not stand it. I would have to cry for the whole performance because the emotions are too intense. So I have to like control how much emotionality I can send and also welcome to create a connection that is deep and strong, but does not distract us from the stage experience. Because I have dance friends around me. When I dance with them, we could just stand there. We don't have to dance, and we can just have the most emotional experience without any move at all because our connection is so deep. And we would both stand there just crying, but it's not that nice for the audience, I think. This kind of controlling. So when I started, it was all about, okay, posture and keeping eye contact and remembering stuff. And now with a bit more experience, it's more like, okay, I have to control so much about the connection so that we both can feel comfortable with our emotions in this moment on stage with the audience to create a wonderful performance, to enjoy the dance, but not go 100% into it because it would be too much.
Yeah, to me, it's like real life magic happening in such situations.
Yes. Yes.
And we're able to take that out into, like, I can't even tell you how much this dance has influenced my external, like my away from dance world, like my corporate world, and like just being in the world before. It's just taught me so much. And so, Daniela, I love what you were, something that you said triggered in a good way, the concept of flow, and being able to just be with your own. And I know before this, we started this live stream, we were talking about online classes and kind of learning on your own. And so I know a lot of people might not necessarily like to learn online. They like the connection with others. Of course, I love the connection with others. Practicing at home by myself lets me feel it a little bit more. I can let go a little bit more because I don't have the influence of other people's emotions, or I'm not trying to contain mine so much. And so, so I think that there's definitely an emotional benefit to practicing at home. And if you are practicing at home and you're practicing your figure eight and you're like, I don't like this, I don't like to practice by myself, having the mindfulness of the emotional competence to ask yourself, why? Why is it easier for you to connect with other people and so hard for you to connect with yourself?
Absolutely.
I love
yes.
it.
Yeah.
I love this question. Really,
100%.
Yeah.
So we have a couple more comments, and then we'll kind of have to, we could talk about this all for like 2 days. We're going to have a 2-day podcast. JNR Cameron says, being open, being vulnerable, developing a comfort level with eye contact. That is why I love the dance. It allows me to connect with people in a way that seems to be diminished by technology, right? So they're there to connect with other people. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Lacey says, I love the idea of work in.
Yeah, it's a good word.
Yeah. So this is, I love this topic. As both of you know, because you came to alignment, we spent a whole day talking about just like one area of the body and the emotions around like this thing. And like we start tying all the days together, and even 4 days, as you know, wasn't enough, because it's just such a huge, wonderful topic. So on FCBDU, of course, we have plenty of classes for you, but a lot of the yoga classes are I would love for people to take them and then feel like, how does opening my hips make me feel, right? So this coming week, I'm going to let Dani talk about her class that's coming out tomorrow. It's starting tomorrow. I've coupled that with a class on opening your heart and the heart chakra. And so I think that those two go really well together. And then we have Elena's class about like the yummy, juicy undulations and body waves. And so just that heart opening aspect that can make you feel just like, oh, Elena. And I have to share this because it's totally on topic. So I got a voice message from, so Carolina and I chat throughout the day. We're just like nerds that way. And so one day I got this message, and she had been watching, it was a voice message or a video message, and she had been watching our release of your class. Oh no, your announcement. We announced you on FCBDU. And I come on this video, and it's like the video of your announcement. And she turns the screen around and she was like, "Yes, ma'am." She said, those juicy, I think she said juicy, or she said yummy. Maybe she said yummy. Those yummy undulations. Look at her. And I was like, I know. And then I said, and do you know what her class is called? She was like, it's the perfect name for it.
Oh my God. Thank you so much.
Class. Sorry, I didn't mean to like embarrass you or put you on the spot, but I just thought that was just really sweet. So
that's totally fine. Thank you so much for telling me that. I might start crying because of that. But yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And at some point when I'm teaching this class, even though I was doing a voiceover, I'm just saying, oh, I love that. This is my favorite part. And this is really true, because just writing the voiceover script, I remembered how I feel after doing the sequence in the warm up. I just feel so happy when I've stretched out and done all the stuff for opening the chest, opening the heart, and it's that's 100% the way I feel every time I do the sequence.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. So definitely everybody check that out. And of course, it's on the new releases. So when you go take Dani's class, you can go take Elena's class. And if you've taken it once, please take it over and over again, because especially if that's the feeling that you want your students to have, why not take that class before you go teach? And then you come into that room with that same feeling or that same sensation. I mean, does anybody else have certain songs that they play on the way to class, depending on how they want their class to be, right? Yeah. Sometimes it's a belly dance song, and sometimes it's like Eminem because I need a little like pumped up. So It's the same concept, right? Like take a class, listen to the class while you're preparing for your other class because you like the way that it makes you feel. Mm-hmm. So I also wanted to let Dani introduce her class that she's coming out. So this is a huge topic, as we said. And how wonderful that you can learn more. So, Dani, can you tell us a little bit about the class that comes out tomorrow?
Yes, I'm very happy to tell you something about it. So the class is about emotional competence, and you will learn some basic theories about what emotions are. So I will not answer this question here and now, but I will give you the question for you just to think about what are emotions. So every one of us know what they are, but it's so hard to define. It's so hard to tell others. Maybe if you think about someone who doesn't know what an emotion is, how would you explain this? This is so interesting because it's damn hard, right? And so this class is about emotions, what they are, how to experience them. And also you will learn some little exercises to dive a bit deeper into experiencing emotions, to create some understanding.
Yeah, it's great. It's I remember learning that from you for the first time. Defining emotions and learning the purpose of the emotions. It was like, oh my God, total headcanon, and I just kind of like unlocked an extra skill. So this is really cool that you have this class coming out. Yeah.
I'm so happy to
Yeah.
do this.
I'm excited about it. And I mean, and like you just said, Ellen, it's like you'll unlock another skill. So like take
Mhm.
that class, practice the exercises, maybe take it a couple of times because it's a lot of really great information, and then go back and take a level 1 class, right? Do some figure eights and then tune in with, I mean, like seriously, it's personal development and growth on another level. It's personal development and growth through dance. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. So
Absolutely.
why not
Yeah.
keep going with it?
Yeah.
So I want to take a moment and thank Elena and Danny, of course. Thank you so much for being here. And
Thank you for having
You for
us.
inviting
yes,
for this
and you can
wonderful
check
talk.
Yeah.
oh,
That
it
was
was so good. And you can check out their bios on FCBDU under the instructors. And of course, take their classes. And if you love their classes, tell everybody because how could you not? And of course, there are links to their website, their bio, their dance academy. All of that is in there. So you'll get all of that great information. I want to take a special moment and thank everybody that joined us in the live stream on YouTube. Thanks so much. Our next podcast is in 2 weeks. Our next episode is in 2 weeks. And our guests for that episode are Liz Malcolm and Carolina Naricchio.
Woo.
And we're going to be talking about the brand new updated flowchart.
Awesome.
Uh-huh,
Wow.
So mark
Yeah.
your calendar for 2 weeks. And all of that to say, I just want to thank the members so very much. Without our members, we would not be able to do this. Like we wouldn't be able to have these wonderful instructors and all of these wonderful things that we're able to provide to the community. The podcast, thanks Elena for talking me into it. The YouTube channel, like all of these wonderful things that will hopefully help connect us even more as we continue to grow. And how cool is it? Like when we meet each other online and then we're able to connect in person. I know the feeling of like being in a room full of people and having to kind of control your emotions because you just want to cry with like the joy and the happiness. That's how it felt at Alignment to finally see so many people in one room together. So absolutely. All right. Is there anything else that you all want to share before we say goodbye?
Do you have something?
Well, I just have a little weird story that I heard about. It's not about empathy or emotional. Well, it's part of the emotional competence, like intuition or your gut feeling, because a lot of time it gets dismissed as the lesser part of knowledge. But there was actually a scientific study about this gut feeling, where they interviewed like I think 70 Wall Street brokers who were well educated, and they divided them in different groups, sorted by how much they make decisions following their gut feeling or just rational decisions based on what they've learned. And the ones going with their gut feeling were all much more successful than the others who didn't do that. So it's actually, there's scientific proof, at least a little bit, that you should listen to your emotions, to listen to your gut, and make decisions based on that, and not overthink it. Basically.
Yeah. I love that. And the
Mhm.
stuff that I tend to talk about when I say like the chakras and my husband's like, it's not real science. I'm like, but then science comes out and proves what we've already practiced and we've already known. Like in yoga teacher training, my first one, I had to read this book by a heart surgeon.
Mhm.
And he did a study and he had a group of people that, went through the heart surgery, did the thing, went back to life as normal. And then he had a group that had the heart surgery and went and healed connections, family members that they had, they basically healed the heart, the emotional heart. And those people had better outcomes and lived longer than the ones that just like had the surgery. It's like it does, like the emotions
Yeah.
that you feel in the various parts of your body does impact you physically and can can make you Wall Street, can make you some money if you listen to your gut.
Apparently. Yes.
All right. Oh my gosh. Thank you all over here on YouTube for joining. And thank you, Danny and Elena. I can't wait to see you this summer and advanced teacher training.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Get into some of this a little bit more and a lot of really cool stuff. So I'm excited for that as well.
Yeah.
All right. And be sure to take their classes on FCBDU. Thank you all so much for joining us. Mwah! Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.